The last of the components to be constructed for this model are the 3 anti-aircraft guns. There are 2 varieties, 2 of this smaller type that goes on the upper platform, and then 1 larger one that goes on the lower platform. For all of these anti-aircraft guns, I'm going to start with the plastic components and then remove some of the plastic details, which will then be replaced with photo etch details. In the previous video, when I was cleaning up the snorkel, I accidentally snapped it in half. Well, I was once again not gentle enough with these plastic components, and while removing one of these smaller anti-aircraft guns from its sprue, I managed to snap off a barrel. Clippers seem to be too rough for this plastic. I should be using a blade and just very carefully cutting it on the cutting mat. Fortunately though, I did only break off one barrel, and I managed to get all the other anti-aircraft guns off of their sprue without damaging them, although I now am quite concerned about cleaning them up, because clearly this plastic is very delicate, so I'm going to have to do that very carefully. When it comes to removing some of the plastic details that are molded onto these guns, for the larger gun it's quite easy. It's a bit bigger and there actually isn't all that much plastic that needs to be removed. It's just a few little details that can be very easily clipped off and then filed smooth. Though for the smaller guns, removing some of this plastic detail is quite a bit more tricky. There's this rather ugly block that sits underneath the barrel that needs to be removed. There's no clear way for me to remove them. I have to just shave them down slowly until I get them to roughly the correct shape, and then try and shape it with a file to get it to match the flow of the barrel and the side of the stand. This is not something that I'm going to be able to do perfectly, but it is a very small area, and once these guns are installed on the boat, it's also going to be quite difficult to see into that area. After fashioning the barrels for these guns into as good a shape as I can get them, I use extra thin plastic cement to glue them to their stands. Now that the plastic assembly is complete, I can install the photo etch onto the gun and its mounts. Starting with these clips, one gets installed on each barrel of the gun as you would expect, but they do go in different orientations, which is a bit interesting, although the manual does make it clear what the correct orientation is, so this is not difficult to do. To install them, I place a small drop of medium viscosity glue on the edge of the photo etch and then place it onto the barrel. The next piece of photo etch is a small wheel that goes on the side of the mount. To install it, I place a small drop of medium viscosity superglue on the side of the mount and then place the wheel on top of that drop of superglue. That is all the photo etch that is required for these 2 smaller guns. Moving on to the larger gun, there's quite a lot more photo etch on this gun, so I'm going to start with the flat photo etch that goes inside the gun and then work my way outwards. The first of this photo etch are these 2 pieces for the elevation mechanism for the gun. This is just adding in some nice detail that was missing in the plastic. To install these mechanisms, I place a small amount of medium viscosity superglue on the side of the mount and then place the photo etch on top of the glue. After the elevation mechanism, I move on to installing the shield. The shield comes in 2 components, the actual main shield part and then a small U-shaped spacer. The spacer stands the shield a little bit off the front of the plastic just to get it into the correct position. First, I glue the spacer to the shield using medium viscosity superglue and then the entire shield assembly to the gun using more medium viscosity superglue. Before the superglue fully sets, I adjust the position of the shield to get it into the correct orientation, and once I'm happy with its position, I reinforce the bond using extra thin superglue that I apply with a wire. Now for the most delicate of the photo etch on these guns. On either side of the guns there are these seats and control wheels for maneuvering the gun. This photo etch needs to be folded in very specific locations, but it doesn't have score lines in the metal. That means for it to be folded correctly, I need to use the photo etch folding tool. After folding the frame into the correct shape, I use tweezers to fold the wheel and seat into the correct position. There are score lines for the seat and wheel, so I don't need to use the photo etch folding tool to make those folds. With these photo etch structures fully folded, I apply a small amount of medium viscosity superglue to the frame and then place it in contact with the side of the gun. Before the glue sets, I maneuver the frame to ensure that it is in the correct position. Once I am happy with its position, I reinforce the bond with more extra thin superglue. There is one more detail to put on these frames, and those are the pedals or footrests. These parts are provided separately from the frame, so I just need to cut them off of the fret and then glue them to the frame using medium viscosity superglue. The last of the photo etch details to be installed on this gun is a small metal clip. This is once again photo etch that just gets folded up into position and then glued to the back of the gun using medium viscosity superglue. Other than that, there's just a small bend that I need to make on the top of the shield. I should have made this bend before I installed the shield, but I didn't notice it. Fortunately, there is a score line in the metal, so it can be easily bent with tweezers. The anti-aircraft guns are now all ready for painting. First, I'm going to spray them all with metal primer. Metal primer will help the paint stick to the photo etch, and it also doesn't really have an effect on plastic, so you can spray metal primer over plastic and metal, and it will make the paint stick to both of them just as well. After the metal primer, the anti-aircraft guns are sprayed in this very light, almost white grey. This is the same color that I used for the upper hull of the boat and the base color for the conning tower. Once that paint has dried, there is a pattern effect that needs to be painted onto all of these anti-aircraft guns. This is in that medium grey, the same medium grey that's used to create the pattern on the conning tower. Once again, I'm just going to brush paint it on. When painting these markings, I'm not at all trying to perfectly recreate the markings on the actual painting guide. That is going to be far too difficult for components that are this small. So you could say I'm just using the painting guide for inspiration. Having said that, there is one area where I do try to recreate the pattern, and that's on the shield for this larger anti-aircraft gun. The shield, being a flat surface that is fairly large, is actually something that I can reasonably try and copy something onto. So I give it a go, and I think I get quite a good result. As with the markings on the conning tower, the medium grey is surrounded by a line of very dark grey. In this case, I'm using black because I think it's going to be a reasonable approximation. And I'm just going to draw on that line using a 0.5mm marker pen. In addition to the dark grey outlines, there are also speckles all over these anti-aircraft guns. To create those speckles, I use the same marker pen and just put little dots all over these components. As when I was using this marker on the conning tower, I'm concerned that this marker pen will smudge if I were to accidentally touch it. So I'm going to seal it all in with a layer of glass varnish. Now that the ink from the marker is safely sealed in under a layer of gloss varnish, I can paint the last few details on these guns. That involves painting the barrels in a mix of iron metallic and anthracite matte, that is Revell numbers 91 and 9. Before I install the guns onto the boat, I'm going to apply a little bit of panel line to them. It's going to be easier to do it now simply because I can access the gun from all angles. Once they are installed on the boat, it's just going to be more difficult to access them. This is very thinned black panel line. It's roughly 2 parts solvent to 1 part panel line. When panel line is thinned to this extent, you don't really need to worry about removing the excess. The panel line will just flow into the details and pool in the right areas. After giving the panel line a short amount of time to dry, installation can begin. I'm going to start by installing the 2 smaller anti-aircraft guns that go on the upper platform. All the mounts for these anti-aircraft guns are plastic, but they are all going to be installed onto photo etch decks. That means they have to be glued down using super glue. Plastic cement will not bond to photo etch. Fortunately for all of these guns, there are very clear markings on the deck as to where the base of the mount should be located. This makes it very easy to put a small drop of super glue in the correct location and then place the mount on top of that drop of super glue. As always, in the small amount of time that I have before the glue sets, I maneuver the gun to get it into the correct position and orientation. Essentially, the same process is then repeated for the lower and larger anti-aircraft gun, although in this case there is a hole through the deck, which makes locating it in the correct position a little bit easier. The last of the photo etch to be installed is a flagpole. I had intentionally not installed it when I was installing the periscopes and the snorkel. That's because I knew I'd be working in this area with the anti-aircraft guns and it would get in the way. I'd most likely have damaged it. So I decided that I would just install it after I had installed the anti-aircraft guns. I start by painting the flagpoles in that very dark grey, almost black color, and then once the paint has dried, I remove it from its fret. Its installation is also very simple. I place a small drop of medium viscosity superglue at the base of the flagpole and then carefully lower it into position. After maneuvering the flagpole into the correct position and orientation, I hold it in place and apply extra thin superglue to permanently bond it to the handrail. With the installation of the flagpole, that's technically the last component to be installed for this model, but I'm not quite done yet. In the next video, I'm going to be doing a little more weathering to tie in these anti-aircraft guns and periscopes and handrails, which look a bit too shiny compared to the rest of the boat. I'm also going to be doing a little bit of rigging and install a flag. If you don't want to wait for the scheduled release of videos and want to watch them when they're uploaded, consider becoming a channel member by clicking the join button below. If you would like to support the channel, like and subscribe. And as always, questions are welcome in the comments. Thank you for watching. Cheers.